Open world VR games just hit different. There's nothing like putting on the headset and actually stepping into these massive worlds where you can explore, survive, or just lose track of time for absolutely hours. So today we're going to be diving in and talking about some of the best open world VR games you can play as of right now, from survival sims to sci-fi epics, and a few classics that still hold up. Of course, I ask you one small favour in these videos, and that is to smash that like button if you enjoy these videos. It really, truly does help the channel out, and it makes these videos get a lot more exposure inside of the YouTube ecosystem. Of course, as well, if you've been watching a ton of these videos and you're not subscribed yet, well, maybe today is the day to change that. Hit that flipping subscribe button, help me get that way up to 100k. I'd massively appreciate it. We want one of those plaques one day in our lives. Other than that though, let's dive into our very first game on this list. Let's start with Stormland. This is one of the more criminally underrated VR experiences. Now, you may have heard of this before. It was even removed from the store at one point, but now has thankfully been put back. This is actually made by the developers Insomniac, the same people that made, Spider-Man 1 and 2 and Miles Morales. Pretty big studio. You're basically playing as a robot exploring floating islands, gliding through clouds, upgrading yourself, and taking on huge enemy strongholds. The movement system is one of the smoothest in VR. The climbing, flying, ziplining across the islands just feels bloody incredible, all whilst also being done in a most visually stunning way, with some of the best audio that we actually have inside of a VR game. Personally, I love the way the music transitions between the scenes. Not just that, but just little things like the rain, the wind, and everything else that's going on around you just really grounds you and makes you feel like you're in that open world. And again, you can just lose a ton of time inside of this game just exploring and enjoying it. Genuinely, like I say, criminally underrated, and one that if you own a PC is definitely worth getting in on. Next up, I simply could not make one of these lists without including my favourite games personally, Into the Radius 1 and 2. Both its predecessor and the sequel now have just been incredible experiences to be able to dive into, and ones where I genuinely do spend tens of hours in, just enjoying myself and completely losing myself inside of the worlds. If you're a fan of things like the Stalker games on flat, well, this is just going to give you that sort of vibe, but actually in VR, in a really heavily well-designed game that I just bloody love. These games drop you into this kind of creepy, surreal world where, like I said, think Stalker, but in VR. You're going to scavenge for gear, sneak around anomalies, and fight off shadowy creatures. The gun mechanics are some of the most realistic in VR, all the way down to having to clean out your weapons so that they don't jam on you, and just maintain them, making sure that they work. I mean, honestly, I spend just as much time out in the universe as I do cleaning and organising my storage inside of this game. I just absolutely love the way that it works. I mean, even down to individually loading each bullet into your magazine, which takes time, yes, but it feels so enjoyable and rewarding when you're inside of this big open world. It's slow and intense, yeah, but it is insanely immersive, so I highly recommend you check these out if you can. Next up is an absolute no-brainer of a game that you need to try, and that is No Man's Sky. Now, originally when this came out, good God, it was absolutely crap, but it has come a hell of a long way, including the most recent update, especially if you're on PlayStation using PSVR. Jeez and crow, it looks bloody stunning. Now, honestly, you just can't talk about open worlds without discussing this game at this point. The entire galaxy in VR, yeah, that's right, you can literally travel across the entire galaxy discovering the most insane crap you've ever seen in your life, and genuinely, the scope of this game is just huge at this point. You can fly your ship, land on any planet, explore the worlds with friends, and it's still just so wild that you can get into this game that is massively playable in VR. I mean, like, literally perfect for VR, to the point where it actually feels like this game just was purely designed to be a VR game over even a flat game. So they've done an incredible job at this, and like I said, with all the new updates, the new world updates, and all of the cool stuff that they've got going on now, you can even space jump. I mean, God, the list just goes on and on. An incredible experience to be had. Honestly, I think the best way to experience this at this point is on PlayStation VR 2, and then closely followed by PC. Maybe one day we'll get standalone hardware powerful enough to be able to run this game, but for now, if you own a PSVR 2 or PC, get this in your life. Next up, we have Green Hell VR. If you want a survival game that really pushes you, then Green Hell VR is brutal, and it's probably the one that you should be picking. You're stranded in an Amazon rainforest, and this tells you everything you need to know. You need to get the hell out of there, you need to survive, and of course, you need to try and find your partner. Well, you're going to be fighting off things like jaguars and infections while you try and craft gear, hunt for food, manage your sanity, and a lot more hardcore than any other VR survival. This one really does push you to your own mental limits, and well, if you can pull it all off, it just feels so damn satisfying. I personally just love being dropped into this giant rainforest and having this experience. I loved this originally in flat, and when it came to VR it was a little bit rocky, but now they have truly ironed it out, even to the point where it has multiplayer as well, so if you want to get in some friends and experience this, it really changes up the entire vibe of the game, and it's just super fun. Next up we have Asgard's Wrath 2. Now for something a little bit more polished in my opinion, Asgard's Wrath 2 is probably the most ambitious RPG ever made for VR. It's huge, it's full of quests, dungeon, gods messing around with your journey, and it plays more like a traditional RPG than most other survival games. But the scale of this world, it's just genuinely mind-blowing, and not just that, this is entirely done on a Quest 3 or Quest 3S, which is impressive in itself. Not only that, again, they also have incredible graphics throughout this entire game, and you can definitely tell that it's got standalone graphics at points, but it really does push the Quest to its absolute limits, and really you can probably get 150 hours at this game quite easily, if not more. So it's genuinely one of those games that's worth every single penny you're going to pay for it if you're willing to invest the time into the game. It's something that may actually keep your headset from collecting dust and actually get you engaged back into VR again. An absolute fantastic game where you don't need to have played the first one. I think the only regret I have of this game is the fact that they didn't just call it Asgard's Wrath something rather than Asgard's Wrath 2, because I don't think any of the players played the first game because it was PCVR only. Next up is a definite no-brainer, and I mean that because it's full of zombies that, well, have barely any brains left. That is The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. This is just, well, I mean, this is actually kind of the birthplace of so many mechanics that we see now as standard in VR games. They really showed how it's supposed to be done, and they followed through with that by just making an incredible game at the same time. The first game and Chapter 2 have given you this sort of semi-open world areas of New Orleans, which actually does feel more open world than I think it should do, but damn, this game just feels incredible. You're going to be spending your time in New Orleans, scavenging through it, and well, managing supplies, sneaking around walkers, and making some tough choices with factions, which will inevitably change up how your game feels. The survival horror vibe plus the realistic melee combat makes this one of the best VR series out there, and genuinely a high recommend to anyone. I think most people probably have this installed on their headset, but I definitely recommend if you haven't, it's time to explore this game, and if you haven't played it for a while, it's probably time to jump back in and see if you can survive The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. Next up we have a newer one. This is Medieval Dynasty VR. Now again, this one's actually been through some upgrades and got quite a lot of drops in it over the last year, where they've been looking after the game and just making it a little bit more polished. This isn't just a survival game, you're actually building up a medieval village, farming, crafting, and managing your dynasty across generations. If you want something with a bit of a slower, more relaxing, but still that open world freedom, then this one is definitely worth checking out. I mean, you can literally have a family in this game, so I mean, make sure you take your headset off for regular breaks. But for real, Medieval Dynasty is one of those games that really just drew me in personally, as I'm a sucker for an open world game, and this one just really sort of tied it all together and did a very good job of delivering. And now let's talk about some older but still amazing VR games, kicking that off with The Forest. Now The Forest, I think again, it's one of those games that we probably all know by this point, but the idea behind this is that you're in a plane accident, it crashes into a forest, and some weird cannibalizing, crazy, mutated tribes people steal your son, and your aim is to then sort of uncover all the secrets of the forest, as well as finding your son and working out what the bloody hell is going on. Now this is fully playable in VR and genuinely a great experience. Now a little janky and definitely feels very old VR at this point, but damn, it's still an incredible experience to jump into and explore, and again you can get in there with some friends, which really spices up the experience and just makes it bloody good fun. An old one, but definitely one that's still worth playing. Next you have Subnautica. Now Subnautica is an incredible game that I absolutely love, like a 10 out of 10 from me, maybe an 11 out of 10 for Subnautica 1, and it also does have a VR mode. Now while it's not the most established VR mode and really is kind of rough around the edges, it's still very much worth jumping into, because seeing a Leviathan in person is a very different vibe check to what it feels like when you're on a flat game. So it's one of those ones that's not perfect, and I probably wouldn't even recommend playing the entire full game in VR, but it's definitely definitely one of those ones that does have a pretty solid VR mode inside of it, and it's worth at least checking out some of the areas in virtual reality just to really get a feel and scale for things, and it will remind you when you're playing it flat just why those places are so intensely scary. Now, before we wrap up this video, we couldn't not mention these other two games, but the reason they're at the end of this list is because both of these games need an incredible amount of modding to make them a truly awesome experience. I mean, they're okay out of the box, but my god, you definitely want to install at least 150 mods on either of these games to get them to a place where they are truly epic to experience. And the first one we want to speak about for this is Skyrim VR. Now, I am a huge fan of Skyrim. I have spent an insane amount of hours playing these games in VR, and the fact that we even got official port for this is pretty insane, but of course it does truly show its age. But with a little bit of modding, and there are some really easy packs to install which will do like everything you need to do at a click of a button, so definitely worth looking into. You can make Skyrim VR just a really up-to-date insane experience, even changing out all the enemies to have like AI where they can speak to you back and all sorts. It's just bloody insane. If you spend a little bit of time modding this, it's well worth doing. And in that same vein, we have Fallout 4. Now again, insane that we actually even got an official port for this, so props to Bethesda for supporting their two games like this. Nonetheless, again, it needs a buckload of modding to make this game a truly good experience. But with a little bit of work on it, you can make this one of those proper standout experiences, truly making it feel like you're stepping into that Fallout universe. Whew, I'm very pleased to say that you are going to be happy if you do spend a little bit of time learning how to mod these games, because they will absolutely change your way you spend time in VR. You will be addicted and you will spend way too much time inside of that game. So if you're a Fallout fan, this is a no-brainer. Get it in your life. Whether you are into survival RPGs, exploring massive sci-fi worlds, VR has some insane open worlds for you to experience as of right now. Sadly, there isn't more open world games, and really that comes down to just the ecosystem that we're currently in VR. There just isn't a ton of appeal for developers to spend this much time making this work, but we still do have a buckload of them to enjoy. So let me know if you have any other recommendations in the comments down below. If I missed one of your favorites, drop it in the comments, and I'm always looking for a next game to sink hours into, so if you have something to recommend that I've just overlooked, I would love to know about it. If you enjoyed this though, please do consider smashing that like button and subscribing for more VR content, as I will be delivering more to your faces every single week. Other than that, take it easy guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.